Why do you think people wanted to leave the European Union?
I think whoever was going to go through that would have a difficult time.
Immigration was an issue at the time, which was a big thing.
A majority of British people who voted leave, they regret the decision.
So there are people who did want to leave Europe, and it really isn't fair on them.
She was left with a bit of a shit sandwich, and she's trying to make something out of it.
What are the benefits of Brexit for Britain?
I don't think her deal was that bad.
For the scientific community, this is an extremely dangerous idea.
By the way, where is Nigel Farage?
If they knew what they knew now, I think it might be different.
So I am here in Carnaby Street with...
Nick.
And what do you do for a living, Nick?
I'm a film producer.
You're a film producer?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Right. So we are here to talk about a very light-hearted topic, Brexit.
Sure.
Would you say it's a light-hearted topic?
I think at this point it's the only way that I've been able to cope with it is to just treat it light-hearted. So yeah, I would.
So why do you think people wanted to leave the European Union?
I think that politics is a very delicately run thing. I think ever since the Second World War it's been a sort of politics that's operated on a pendulum swinging from left to right. At its best was during the war when Churchill was off fighting and Attlee was running the country, and that's when you have two parties actually functioning as a democracy. Pendulum over the last, pretty much since Thatcher's era, has been able to swing too far in one direction or the other for too long, and that just causes people to get disenfranchised as the wealth gap increases, and so people react against it.
So London voted predominantly to stay in the European Union, and what was quite prevalent from the statistics was that a lot of rural areas voted to leave. Do you have any ideas why that might be so?
I grew up in rural areas of the UK, probably an area that voted to leave as well, and members of my family voted to leave who still live in those rural areas, and I think they feel a little bit forgotten about, a little bit patronised. I wouldn't say it's dissimilar to the sentiment felt across the Atlantic. When people feel like they are being forgotten or out of touch or whatever it may be, then they'll react to try and change something, and they were given the power to change and they opted to change.
John Pepe, I work for an advertising agency literally here. I think immigration was an issue at the time, which was a big thing. I think the bureaucracy and the red tape of the European Union was irritating people. I think the problem is that people didn't actually really know what they were voting for, which is played out 2 years later that it's the situation we're in at the moment.
Yeah. Do you think the misinformation or the lack of correct information was a big factor?
Yeah, I think it was. I genuinely don't think anyone knew what they were voting for, and I think if they knew what they knew now, I think it might be different.
Do you think people know now what Brexit is actually going to, what the implications of us leaving the European Union are going to be?
No, I don't think anyone has a clue, and I think sadly the politicians don't seem to know either. So I don't know how we're expected to know. They're meant to know all about this, and they clearly don't know what's going on.
Alan Leshner, I'm a retired scientist. I used to be the head of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the publisher of the journal Science, and here I am in London. I think people wanted to leave because they want autonomy. They want to feel as if they control their own destiny and don't have to worry about 27 countries. But having said that, you then run the risk of giving up some of the benefits. So I worry most about the scientific community. For the scientific community, this is an extremely dangerous idea. Britain has gotten a lot of grants, there are a lot of collaborations, the free exchange of scientists, free exchange of ideas, all could be put into jeopardy. Not necessarily, but it looks like it's going that way.
So when the referendum came up and the results were announced, London was, a large majority voted to stay, but a lot of rural areas voted to leave. Do you have any sort of thoughts on that?
I do think that certainly analogously in the United States, we had a large segment of the population who felt they were disenfranchised. Maybe that's what happened here as well, and people said, I don't like it like this, and I'm not going to take it anymore, and therefore they voted to change.
Ravi from Stewart's London. I'm the CEO at stewartslondon.com. Well, there was a fair majority that voted to stay in. The ones that voted to leave, I think they had all their own agendas. The actual reason behind Brexit wasn't actually portrayed properly, in my opinion. I think there could have been a little bit more clarity on what actually Brexit was and what it actually meant going forward. The communication from the government to the general public was bleak.
I'm Chris and I live here. I'm from the Netherlands. I was born in Holland. I am a musician.
A majority of British people who voted leave, they regret the decision. What is the best thing to do now for them, and why these people regret their decision?
Well, they regretted it because they saw that actually, shit, this happened. That was the first reaction. And most of them have not changed their idea. It's still, shit, it has happened. Let's change it back. What the hell have you done? Other people have realized that actually there is no deal coming through. There is no input that's actually going to bring any benefit to this. So those are my opinions. I've not done any research, so unfortunately I'm not sure about this. If it's not, let us know in the comments below.
My name's Lee and I'm from the Midlands, Derbyshire. I'm a student at the moment studying computer science. They probably regret the decision because they're sick of hearing it on the media and they're bored of it, and the average person doesn't really care for politics, I'd say, and it seems like a long drawn out process and everyone's a bit bored of it. I think a lot of people aren't bothered. They went out to vote, but altogether they're not bothered. You've seen in Parliament itself, even the Labour Party can't agree on the next steps, and I think you've got 600 different views, 600 individuals, and then across the country you've got 60 million different views.
My name's Felicia. I'm from Norway. I'm a creative. If they vote again, I think you'll see the numbers change massively, drastically.
I'm Ben. I'm from up the north of England, but I live in London now. I'm a web designer. I think certainly the people I know, it wasn't so much a vote about leaving Europe. It was more a vote of against the institution, against the government. It was more just saying we're unhappy and we're going to vote in a different way to the way you want us to vote because of that. I think that was the wrong decision, so maybe they would probably like the opportunity to vote in a different way, actually considering whether or not we're staying in Europe rather than just voting in a different way to the way the government would like us to vote. I personally think they'd like another opportunity, but as I say, there are people who did want to leave Europe, and it really isn't fair on them to have a vote and then say, well, actually we're going to have another vote and change our minds, because that's not how it's supposed to work.
Max, and I'm from London. I work with electric vehicles, designing and manufacturing them. Well, I think often people regret their decision because they're looking into the past in a negative way. Just change the frame. Just say maybe we made a mistake. Don't regret it. Just move on with the best foot forward you can, and try to reflect on the best aspect of that mistake. So there's always something to learn, isn't there?
Many people feel bad that they voted leave and now they changed their mind. They want to stay in the EU.
Yeah, they probably do feel bad, but I would just say don't feel bad. Tomorrow's another day. Go out there and make the best of it, of what you can. You've got friends, you've got family. If you haven't got friends or family, just have a great time anyway. Be in nature. Don't worry about Brexit too much. There's lots of things going on that are super positive that the political sphere don't engage in. So.
My name is Karen, I'm from Norway. I'm a student right now. What's the best thing to do,
for them to feel better, maybe?
Well, ideally they would have a new referendum, but I don't think it's going to happen though. So, the politicians need to find a good deal so that they can still collaborate with the EU in terms of trade and economy and stuff. But other than that, they just have to look to the future and see how they can collaborate with the rest of Europe in the best possible way.
And a message for the people out there. What would you wish to people who voted leave and people who voted to remain and people of the UK?
It's a really difficult one. Hang on in there. I think they must delay it. I think, as someone said the other day, if we leave without a deal, it's like jumping off a cliff, and there's normally one result when you jump off a cliff, and it's not a good one.
Well, there may be a trampoline at the bottom, but there may not.
Some people believe there's a trampoline, and let's hope, if we leave, that there is one.
Well, the general opinion is that the trampoline was there in the 80s, so we still assume that it's still going to be there and we're going to be fine. Is that a great strategy?
I think jumping off a cliff, even with a trampoline, is a dangerous thing to do. So.
By the way, where is Nigel Farage?
Oh, God knows. He's probably hunkered down in some cave somewhere. I don't know, don't care.
He probably has reason.
Yeah, I don't think he's well liked. He's probably shacked up with Boris somewhere.
He's done his job.
Where is he now?
I've no idea. Is he in America with Trump? I don't know. Doing something terrible, I'm sure. But yes, he did his job though. You've got to say he succeeded in what he set out to do. And I think, yeah, but hopefully, if there is a general election, hopefully UKIP will not be coming back up.
I don't know.
Disappear.
Yeah, he was everywhere under the voting and stuff, but I don't know where he is now. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, Nigel Farage. Well, he seems to be like that old school political guy who everyone likes to take fun out of. But I'm sure, regardless of what status he has, give the guy a break. Maybe I think he's got quite a good sense of humour.
Recently, Nigel Farage said that Theresa May is the worst prime minister in living memory. Do you agree?
I've not been in this country long enough to have a point of view on that. I've read about and I've seen about older prime ministers and people in charge of England, and of the UK, excuse me. But yeah, I cannot agree or disagree with the statement.
I don't know. I just think he's probably just trying to create a little bit of a stir, isn't it? Like everyone needs to read a newspaper, but I don't. He think deep down he doesn't think Theresa May, perhaps he does, is the worst prime minister Britain has ever had. But I would probably say Theresa May is the kindest. I would say she seems like a really nice woman. She can't.
And hardworking.
She does seem like a hardworking woman. She can't dance very well. Maybe she needs some dance lessons. She could go to Pineapple, which is in Covent Garden. Theresa May. I'm more than happy to take you to a ballroom class or a tango class, and but yeah, I think these things you can't get on people's back all the time. You just got to let people do what they can and support them best as possible, and try and create the best outcome for everyone, rather than squabbling over Democrats, Labour, and all the rest of the parties.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I think they're fantasists that you are able, if you look at the size of the European Union, the 27 member states, and the size of the UK, however much we love our country and it's got so much about it, a negotiation with someone much, much stronger than you, how are they possibly going to agree to what you want? I don't see how that's ever going to work.
I think she was given an impossible task. She rose to the leadership of the Conservative Party in a series of movements by their more powerful members that are just the type of thing you see in House of Cards or Game of Thrones. She was left with a bit of a shit sandwich, and she's trying to make something out of it, and then I don't see why people aren't surprised that she can't, because again the vote was so tight.
I think Theresa May has been given a job at large that anybody in her position or any person coming into power would find it very difficult to clean up. Politics is politics. One person says it's great. The ones that aren't involved directly are always going to oppose and make the person in power seem not so great. That's politics for you. Personally, I don't think her deal was that bad. I think it was good for businesses. I'm a businessman, so for me it was actually going to be worthwhile to stay in the EU. I'd hate to think if we do leave the EU what happens to our business. There's a lot of uncertainty, so she's got hard work stuck out. I mean, I don't think she's daft. She's tried her best. I mean, she just needs people to back her, I think.
And if there is going to be Brexit, what are the benefits of Brexit for Britain?
I'm not quite sure on the Parliament and the structure of that, so I suppose the emancipation and as I think Jacob Rees-Mogg said, not as I agree with everything he says, but yes, you've got definite power in Parliament, and that's the absolute say. You don't have the rules of the courts of Europe. You're down to the courts of the United Kingdom rather than, so the Supreme Court is the top court rather than the Supreme Court of the European Union. I think that is probably a benefit.
I can't see any personally. I don't know of any.
If anything, it would be long term, like many, many years from now, and I'm probably dead. And maybe they'll have, government there. They can steer the government however they like, without having to be a part of or do anything that the EU says. But which independency is fine. I mean, we have a sort of a lighter deal with the EU in Norway, and it works really well for Norway. So, but the UK is such a big nation. and is so involved globally, I think it'd be hard for them to have something similar.
I don't think there is a benefit, to be honest. I think we've always been part of the EU. We've always been a global nation. We've, been in, for better or for worse, we've always been, the Commonwealth and our other excursions, you could call them. But at the end of the day, I would just argue that every country does something good differently. We all got our different characteristics, and it's just about connecting those characteristics and making sure that we can all get the best of each other rather than squabbling over the finite resources.
You know what? I think it's hard to see the benefits of it. I think that with consideration to trade and everything, they should have stayed in the EU. So why they really voted for it, I think it's hard for me to understand. So I don't know what the pros of it is actually.
In a way, it's just another conservative vote, which unfortunately has taken over in Europe, like it's happening in France and in Italy and in Poland and all over the place. It's sad that people are, it's nice that they're being more patriotic, but it's sad that they're closing their borders to other people and thinking that this vote is based on the fact that we want to close the borders to other people and close the country. It's not a nice vote to begin with. Unfortunately, this has happened, so let's try to make the best out of it.
What's going to happen with Theresa May and her career after Brexit?
I think she'll be that exhausted that she probably might resign herself, even if this... I think whoever was going to go through that would have a difficult time, because if you've got 600 different opinions in Parliament, if no one can agree, then what can you do about it? Everyone's going to hate you, everyone's going to be... So I think her staying in that position has been a good thing. I think that shows she's a good politician in that sense, in sticking it out, because there was no point in a sort of leadership change, which would have been just a waste of time.
I don't think she's had an easy time in her role, and not that interested in politics either, but I don't think she's going to be on there for long after Brexit.
I'm sure she'll do fine. She'll probably get a job in Brussels. I would think that's where most of them go. I think they get cushy jobs over there. Good luck to her. I would if I could. So why not?
You think she's making decisions, or are there other people who are making decisions for her?
Well, obviously the Brexit secretaries, as they've been, I think this is the third one, they've been making some decisions. Obviously it's a discussion, but I think she probably had to at many points pursue her own agenda, because there's not this sort of consistent view across the party itself. So yeah, she probably did pursue her own agenda at certain points.